Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on post-farm value chains in European food systems. I'm Stuart Reigeluth, founder of REVOLVE, a media group communicating sustainability, and I'm happy to be here today with our colleagues from the Pathways Project, Selene and Righi from University of Pisa, UNIPI, Laurence Smith from the Swedish University of Agricultural Science, SLU, and our coordinator of the Pathways Project, and our very own Dorottya Kalo from REVOLVE. Before we start, allow me to set the scene briefly of the European livestock sector that stands at a crossroads. Over 71% of EU farmland is dedicated to meat and dairy production, making livestock a cornerstone of rural economies and food security, but it is also a driver of environmental pressures. In February 2025, the European Commission unveiled its new vision for agriculture and food, which places sustainability and competitiveness at the heart of future policy. And in May 2025, launched a dedicated livestock workstream to develop robust long-term pathways for a sector that is both economically viable and environmentally responsible. We have seen a recent flurry of activity. Pathways, along with other EU-funded initiatives, have been comparing and refining methods for assessing the environmental and climate impacts of livestock systems, including how we account for emissions beyond the farm gate. Stakeholders are calling for science-based strategies that recognize the nutritional, economic, and ecological value of livestock, while warning that undermining EU production could increase reliance on imports and global emissions. Today, we'll explore how post-farm sustainability assessments, covering processing, distribution, and retail, can help us identify critical leverage points for constructive change. We'll discuss how these assessments can inform better policy, support fairer supply chains, and drive the transition towards a more resilient and sustainable food system. I'm pleased to introduce our colleague Selene Righi, Research Fellow at the University of Pisa's Department of Agricultural, Food, and Agri-environmental Sciences. Her work focuses on sustainability assessments and innovation in agri-food systems, with a particular interest in the ecological transition of European livestock value chains. We will first hear from Selene, and then we'll pass the floor to Laurence for some comments and responses. As a housekeeping for the attendees, and thank you for those who have logged in today, please listen carefully, of course, and add your questions and comments to the Q&A that we'll pick up on and include in the conversation. So on that note, over to you, Selene.
Morning, everyone. It's an honor for me to be here. Thank you for this webinar, Stuart, REVOLVE, and Laurence. I'm Selene Righi, as Stuart said. I'm a research fellow at the University of Pisa and from the Department of Agriculture, and I'm part of the PAGE group, that is the Pisa Agricultural Economies group the Pisa Agricultural Economies group. And I'm involved in different Horizon Europe project, and one of these is Pathways, and the goal and the work that I'm going to present today is related to this project, Pathways. The goal of Pathways, one of the goal of Pathways, is to try to have for the future a more sustainable food. And today I'm going to present this work on the assessment of sustainability, post-farm sustainability in the European livestock value chain. This is briefly the outline of my today presentation. So I'm going to start with the context and an introduction of my work, and then I'm going to explain the goals, the objective of this work, and I'm going briefly to the technical parts, so the theoretical framework and a bit of methods that we are going to use. And then I want to explain some expected results, because it's an ongoing process, an ongoing paper, and so our expected results. We don't have the final results yet. And some conclusion. I want to discuss with you some conclusion and final remarks. So to start, what means sustainability in the livestock sector? Why is important to assess sustainability at the European level and in general? Why is important? So, as I think we already know, the European food system is still characterized by a high degree of unsustainability in environmental, social, and economic terms. And in general, the agri-food system is facing a lot of global challenges. And one of these challenges is the climate change. And as Stuart said before, one of the main cause of this climate change is the livestock. Livestock is responsible of a lot of greenhouse gas emission. But what we want to explain and what we want to highlight is that we can have different production models, different production system. And in the literature, we can see that the intensive models can bring a lot of negative externalities, for example, in terms of deforestation, soil pollution, as I said, greenhouse gas emission, and also can compromise the health of producer and consumer. But this is not everything, because this sector, the livestock sector, can be also a potential solution for this problem, because the livestock system can also play a crucial role in both contributing to this problem. So as it can give us a lot of positive externalities. For example, can provide us nutrition, supporting also the rural areas and their economic activities, and can also conserve, for example, the biodiversity, and also provide a lot of ecosystem services. So it's important for the future, in this context of growing concern of this and of this where we are facing these challenges, to try to ensure for the future generation food security and a healthy and sustainable diet. And how we can reach this food security for the future. We think that a way to reach this is we need a transition for this production system. We need a transition of, in general, the European food system. And for this, it's important to understand and to assess the sustainability of the value chain, and also to understand that not all the systems are the same, that we have also alternative systems that are more sustainable. So this exercise is not easy, but could be very important, because can highlight the action and different information for the policymaker for the action that we need for the future. And it's important why we consider the value chain in all the value chain, because we think that it's important to focus our research not only in one dimension, but in all the dimensions. We need this systemic approach. We need a systemic understanding. We need to understand all the different needs of all the actors, all the stakeholders in all the value chain. Okay, and the objectives of this presentation and of this work is to try to go a step forward at the primary production. So what we want to do is to evaluate and focusing our work on the post-farm value chain. Why? Because we starting from a literature review, and what we found is that a lot of framework and indicators and tools, they are focusing on primary production, the assessment of sustainability of the primary production. So we want to go a step forward. We want to consider all the value chain and not only the primary production. And we also want to fill the gap that we have in the literature to consider not only the environmental metrics, but all the dimension of the sustainability. So not only the environmental sustainability, but the economic, social, and also consider the governance. And to do this, as I said, one goal is also to try to understand and to analyze the broader value chain dynamic and to compare contrasting value chain in Europe. This is important because we can understand the different needs, the different actors, the different dynamics that we have in the value chain. And this is important because can help to improve the sustainability in this value chain. At the end, another goal that we have, a final goal probably, is to at the end have information and information and details for the consumers, but not only, and also for the policymaker to have, as I said before, a better policies, and as they can understand the needs that we have for the future. I want to explain briefly this technical theoretical framework that was our starting point for our analysis. I think this is important to understand the complexity of this work, and because this is our starting point. So from these two different graphs, you can see that we, as I said, we don't consider only the environmental dimension of the sustainability, but when we try to assess the sustainability, it's important that we consider all the different dimensions. So the techno-economic, the socio-cultural, and the governance sustainability. And this was in the framework of the planetary boundaries. So we want to stay in the safe operating space for the humanity, and this means to try to consider the 9 planetary boundaries that we have from the experts. But to enter in our work, what is a value chain? And in the specific, what is a livestock value chain? This graph, this image, I think can help us to understand what is a livestock value chain, but for sure it's not exhaustive, because it's difficult to put for example, in one graph all the different stages that we can have in different livestock value chain, because we have different situation in Europe, but in general also because we have different animal production, as I said, different production system, and so this could be different. But this, I think, is good just to understand the different stage, the most important stage that we can have, and can help me to explain what is a value chain. So the livestock value chain are all these stages that you can see from the primary production to the final consumer. All these stages can add and can create more value for the final product. And this value chain includes different activities, so the primary production, and then the processing, the distribution, the retailing, and at the end, we have the consumer. So I like, because I think it's important to understand where we are and to understand what are the situation now, and it's important to understand what we can do in the future and how we can reach this future. This is to explain. So I've talked about different contrasting livestock value chain in Europe. And this is just to give you an idea of the different system that we found in the literature. So we can have different production methods. So the intensive livestock system, sustainable intensive, extensive livestock system, organic. And now we are starting also to talk about agroecological livestock system. This is just to give you an idea of how many different systems we can have in Europe, but in general. So the methods that we are going to use for our assessment is a mixed method. So we want to put together a qualitative method and a semi-quantitative questionnaire. So in a previous work, we developed a new metric for the assessment of the post-farm livestock value chain that I'm going to explain in the next slide. And we want to put together a qualitative interview. This is just because we think that it's important, as I said before, to understand the needs, the dynamics that are in the value chain, and this is important. And is important is to talk with the stakeholder that work, the different actors that work in this different stage of the value chain. And then we want to put together also a quantitative analysis, a quantitative questionnaire to assess this sustainability, follow our metric. And the choice of the different livestock value chain was driven by the project. We were lucky because we have in the Pathways project, we have different case studies. And so these help us to reach the different actors in the value chain, in different value chain in different territories in Europe. This is just to give you an idea. So we start with a literature review, a review of different tools and frameworks that we have in the literature, because we already have different tools in the literature that try to assess the sustainability of the agri-food system. But we want to have a specific framework for our post-farm value, post-farm assessment. So we found specific metrics, specific indicator for the post-farm sustainability. And also, as I said, we want to go a step forward. So also to consider not only the environmental, but also the other dimension. And so this is our final tool. The expected results of this work, as I said, is to compare different and contrasting livestock value chain in Europe to understand the difference, the sustainability of the different value chain, and to try to improve, because when we if we understand the relationship and the dynamics and the sustainability, we can understand where we need to improve, and then we want to provide useful information at the policymaker and consumers. So this work, the sustainability measuring the sustainability is not easy, but could be also an opportunity for us for the European policies, because as I said, this is important because this work could be important because can highlight the leverage point for these transition, and we can identify also the more sustainable pathways for the future. So it's important for us also to consider to use a systemic approach. We think that this is essential, and it's essential also to consider all the different stakeholders, all the different actors with this participatory approach in a way. Because we think that it's important to consider the system, so and all the dynamics that we can have in the system. And just to conclude, we know that the livestock system is facing in this period profound structural and regulatory market change. And for this reason, we think that it's important to think at new narrative and new strategies for the future. It's important for us to assess the sustainability, also to support the political decision for the future, and also to try to ensure a transformative change for the future. And could be possible with the transformative policies. And it's important also to give a better transparency for the future for the consumer, and also to this could be important to assess the value chain, also to improve their performance for the future. The future strategy for us to reach this transformative change is important that consider the relationship and this interconnectedness of the society. So we want to reach the better well-being for the population, have health, diet for the population, and animal welfare, and also we want to protect the environment. So just to conclude, I think that it's important to try to reduce this environmental impact of the livestock system with this transformative change. And so we need to have the courage also to change what we must be changed. I would like to thank my group, my team, Michele Moretti and Letizia Forzoni from UNIP. And thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for your attention. And I'm happy to answer your question. And if you have some suggestions, are more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Selene, for that overview. Very constructive, very comprehensive. Of course, I have some questions for you as the journalist on the panel, but let me also loop in Laurence, coordinator of the Pathways Project, to help give the full picture that Selene focused on the post-farm systems, while mentioning that not all systems are the same, of course, so this is a significant challenge also on the primary production side of things. So in relation to that, Laurence, could you help tie the two ends together of the primary production work that's ongoing and the challenges that we're confronted with regarding harmonization of these sustainability assessments that are quite complex, as we saw with some of Selene's graphs?
Yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, thanks, Selene, for the excellent talk, and Stuart for the really nice questions. So yeah, the issue of sort of harmonization in sustainability assessment of food systems is a really thorny problem that sort of researchers, policymakers alike are grappling with at the moment. And the complexity is associated with the role that livestock systems have to play in society that Selene mentioned in her presentation, in particular the role they play in a social and economic context. Because what we find is a lot of the tools that we're trying to use within livestock research, they're not necessarily fit for purpose. And to take one example, refer to sort of life cycle assessment, which is a sort of dominant approach for looking at value chain sustainability. But it actually came from industry, and the first LCA's life cycle assessments were done with Coca-Cola, which obviously is a sort of a factory produced product, although the ingredients from food systems there, essentially it's a pretty industrial process in terms of its manufacture. And what's happened in the research area in Europe and beyond is that we've taken a sort of quite a sort of linear approach to assessing sustainability within life cycle assessment and related methods, and try to apply that to a complex system such as livestock farming and livestock-based food systems. And there's a bit of a mismatch there because in agriculture, obviously the word itself contains this word culture, and that aspect is really missing from a lot of the sustainability evaluations that we see. So in many cases, it's left out completely, and where it is included, the social aspect, the cultural aspect, there's huge variety in the approaches that are used, and lack of consistency. So for me, the big challenge in terms of harmonization is thinking about how do we apply a social sustainability assessment more effectively within life cycle assessment and related sustainability approaches, and thinking about how we sort of harmonize that to sort of work towards more consistency in the reporting and to try and capture the value chain aspects, and particularly these cultural aspects, more effectively within Europe and beyond.
Thanks very much for that, Laurence. A brief overview of that side of things. Selene, in relation to what Laurence just mentioned, there are limitations that you're confronted with in your studies in the post-farm as well, of not having the production, the primary production side of things as well. And then one of our questions that's related to this of, the challenges and limitations is from Anna Jameson. So thank you very much, Anna, for your question. What are some of the differences between and within countries you examined in regards to livestock value chain? And if there are those differences, what and where do you see some cases that you could potentially answer? So limitations of studies leading into the differences between countries.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Stuart and Anna. Yeah, Anna. And so the challenges, I think it's better to start with the Hannah question, because what I want to say is that this is a work in progress analysis. So we are not at the point, we don't have the final results. So we don't know yet the differences between the countries, but this is a goal of our analysis. So we want to understand the differences between different alternative value chain in different countries. So, for example, I give you an example. We have the contact with, for example, the milk value chain in Italy and France, and then the beef value chain in Italy and UK. So this is the idea, also to consider and we want to explore the differences between the different production system in different countries. And the limitation that we think that in this work is very challenging for us. So some limitation for sure is the complexity of the data collection in data collection. So it's not easy to reach all the different actors, but we are lucky because we are involved in this Pathways project. So we have this contact with this expert in Europe. So this help us to collect data, but is not easy. And then we have the another, I think, limitation is also the what we want to call we call like declares of sustainability. I mean, maybe that the expert that we are gonna, for example, interview or that can answer our questionnaire, they can declare, they can say it has different information that not are and not respect the reality. But we will see, because we don't know, but we think that this could be a possible problem. Yeah,
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
And in relation to industry actors that you mentioned, Laurence, we have a follow-up question about communicating and promoting more sustainably produced primary products, and how this reaches retailers, and the fact that there needs to be money and time and effort invested in this, and that farmers may be putting in a lot of effort from their side, but they're having difficulty reaching the consumers. So the broader question is, industry may have started this. Are they following up, and are these sustainability criteria getting to them based on your experience?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's pretty pertinent at the moment. I suppose I don't have a sort of clear answer, but just to say that I think one of the things that I think perhaps we could get better at within the sort of research community is trying to understand the role of narratives and explaining the sort of background to the production systems that are being developed and used across Europe, because it's easy to sort of stay within a sort of echo chamber and think that sort of everybody sort of has a good understanding of what a livestock production system entails, but actually many people are very separated from their food choices. And I think something that we really need to get better at understanding, at least from a research perspective, is the power of sort of stories and how we can convey stories effectively to consumers in digestible forms that are easily understood, that don't sort of oversimplify. And I think there are some really, good examples of how that's been achieved in recent years. And think about, for example, the development of the organic sector, where there's been a very strong sort of narrative around the benefits of organic production, and that's sort of helped to boost the growth of the sector along with sort of regulatory changes. But the two have sort of happened side by side, and I think there's really important lessons that can be learned from that, from a production side, in terms of how the producers are sort of engaging with their purchasers and with the supply chain, and then similarly from the value chain or supply chain side, how those practices are being rewarded and captured and communicated. And I think it's tempting to just to think about sustainability labels in that context and the role of labeling, but at the same time, I'm very conscious of the fact that it's a bit of a jungle out there at the moment with labels, and many consumers feel overwhelmed by the amount of labels that are out there. And often there's a misunderstanding about what labels can mean. So I wonder if we need to think a little bit outside of the label box, so to speak, and instead of think about how we better sort of encapsulate the narratives that go along with sustainable food production, livestock systems. So yeah, I don't have a clear answer to that question.
No, super. That definitely gives some insights, and we have a semi follow-up to that goes back to the research and the work that you guys are doing. Question directed to Laurence, but also for you, Selene, if you want to weigh in. This is from Elodie Guillon. Thank you very much for your question. What framework do you recommend to use to evaluate both environmental and social sustainability? Sort of the silver bullet here. Not sure anyone has that answer, but what's your take on a recommended framework that's most effective?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. Yeah, so I'm a little biased here because I've been been involved in the development of a holistic framework called the Global Farm Metric, which has built on the work of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, SAFA guidelines, which was a predecessor really to the work of the Global Farm Metric. But the Global Farm Metric, or the GFM for short, essentially proposes a series of criteria that could be used in a holistic sustainability assessment within food systems. Within the GFM coalition, we've brought together a range of companies and academic organizations, NGOs, in defining a set of criteria around how you can capture sustainability in a holistic way within food systems. One of the things the GFM initiative has promoted is a very sort of farmer engaged process. So right from the very beginning with the development of this work, we've engaged farmers through various trials and through consultations, workshops, interviews, and so on, in making sure that the metrics that we collect are useful on the ground to support decision making. So for me, that's a really exciting and important aspect in terms of trying to make sure that we're not just carrying out sustainability audits to sort of tick a box, but to actually inform better planning and decision making on farm. So yeah, I'm not sure if I can post a link to in the chat, but I can. Do I have permission to do that? I can put the link to the
Yes,
GFM.
you can. You can feel free to put it in the chat there.
But yeah, that's the framework thank you. That's the framework we're working with in various initiatives, including Pathways at the moment. And yeah, if you want to learn more about the GFM, do feel free to get in touch.
Great. Selene, do you want to add to that as well, or do you have a preferred model or framework that you would also recommend, or would do you want to defer?
Yeah, so no, what I want to highlight is that depends also on so we have in the literature, we have a lot of framework and tools for different evaluations. So I think it's important to understand our specific goal, to understand which framework is the best one. We follow for our metric, so different framework, and at the end we talk with we did a Delphi study to arrive at this final metric. But we follow also the SAFA guidelines that I think it's a very good starting point as a guidelines.
Okay, super. And Selene, regarding the relationship between different stages that you mentioned and you showed in that somewhat complicated tree graph and the implications for producers, can you give us some insights, please, into the social justice dimension and some of the power dynamics that are at play here?
Yes, sure. So in our work, we consider the post-farm value chain, but we think that this is very important also to understand also the implication that these dynamics have for the producers. In the value chain, usually the producer and the consumers are the weak parts of the value chain. So we think that we need to understand all the value chain with this systemic approach to try to improve these power that they have in the supply chain, because we need to improve the power. We need to work with the producer, with the primary production, to also try to increase their power in the bargaining power that they have in the value chain.
Okay, thank you for that. Let us zoom out a bit to the European level as well, and let me loop in our colleague Dorottya to give us some policy angles here of recent and upcoming EU legislative changes that could potentially lead to more impactful sustainability assessments beyond the farm gate in the livestock sector. What do you think about that? It's a pretty big one, Dorottya, but take a crack at it.
Yeah, sure. So regarding the policy developments that are currently shaping the livestock sector, what we can see is as the European Commission has launched its livestock workstream, as part of its broader vision for agriculture and food, there's more and more this sort of collaborative effort that the Commission tries to aim for. So this involves farmers, academics, civil society, and it's really aimed as it currently seems like it really aims to on the long run create policies that not only are economically viable but also environmentally responsible and socially inclusive. Speaking of the Common Agricultural Policy, there has been several changes, and there are currently quite some debates about, especially when it comes to the simplification. From 2023, the Common Agricultural Policy introduced the eco schemes. These are under Pillar 1, and these are voluntary measures that farmers can apply for, and some of these have measures that directly target animal welfare and environmental measures. And this was something that when it comes to the region specificity of the livestock sector, each member state put forward these measures that they would like to, that they wanted to include in their eco schemes, and that it was reviewed by the Commission. So this is sort of one of the ways how we currently see some of the environmental and social justice aspects of the livestock sector being directly supported. I also want to. So this is sort of the major policy framework that exists, but we also see some private sector initiatives that can, of course, provide some leverage to sustainability improvement of the livestock sector. But what we see is that often these can be limited by consumer willingness. So whether the consumer will actually pay that additional price is somewhat uncertain. So I would say that on the policy side, these are some of the key measures. Regarding I can also add something to the legislative changes, because there has been some recent and also upcoming legislative actions that sort of influence post-farm sustainability. As Laurence has mentioned, there has been a revision of the organic regulation, and that sort of extends the organic production rules so that it includes new standards on animal welfare and also environmental standards to more species. But also what's interesting is that it sort of extends to more production stages. that are beyond the farm gate. There is also currently the Commission is revising the animal welfare legislation. That is there was a call for evidence that's been launched in June. And this sort of includes a proposal for a binding ban on cages and updated welfare standards for all farm species. So that sort of directly has an impact on the processing, the transport, as well as the slaughter practices post-farm. There are also some changes in live animal transport rules, which again sort of are beyond the farm level, as well as some changes and revisions on the good agriculture practices. So this is primarily on about the feed protein content and new controls that are being introduced. And it also requires regulators to look at more precise reporting when it comes to the analysis of soil. The post-farm producers, but are that will likely have an impact on them on the long run.
Okay, so a lot of ongoing flurry of activity, let's say, in the Brussels bubble policy and the implications that that will have for across the member states with the Common Agricultural Policy that is also very complex to implement per country. And you mentioned, Dorottya, before the role of consumers, which of course is a massive need to involve society at large in this shift towards more sustainable food systems and consuming more sustainably is the long-term goal. A quick pitch for our audience. Our next webinar will be on food apps and how to engage civil society and different associations and groups and people in actually moving in that direction to be more sustainable with their food choices. And in relation to that, Laurence and Selene and Dorottya, feel free to jump in too. There's some skepticism from our colleague Anna in the Q&A here about the organic brand, and you also mentioned, Laurence, that there's somewhat of an oversaturation perhaps of these sustainability stamps and so on that can be a bit controversial here, but I'll say might be a bit towards the greenwashing at times and so on. So it's a bit those are to be taken with a grain of salt, let's say. But the point here is that the role of consumers is very important. So first, Selene, how do you see this fitting into your work? And then Laurence, if you could address the points about the branding and the involvement there.
Yeah. So yeah, as Dorottya said, that I think that the consumer is a crucial actor in this analysis and this in general in the society. Yeah, is part of the society. So it's important to consider the role of the consumer, and I think, as Dorottya said, that it's important that the consumer is willing to change their habits, their lifestyle. They need to have the willingness to pay for different products, different lifestyle, different lifestyle and different choice. That I think they should have more conscious choice. But it's important to give, for example, as researcher, I think it's important our role as researcher, because it's important also to give the consumer information that they can trust us. They can trust for example, the label. They can so they can have information that they can read, they can understand, and so in this way they can probably have more willingness to change and to go toward a different also product, and they can understand the difference between also the different product they can find that they can find. And so I think it's important, the role of the consumer, but it's important also that the researchers and also the policy, the decision maker use this scientific evidence to give the information at the consumer that they can trust.
Laurence?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I agree with that point. It's really important to get better information out to consumers, and at the same time, I think, as mentioned earlier, there's a real sort of saturation of logos, labels out there at the moment, and some of the research we've done previously has sort of shown that a lot of consumers feel a little overwhelmed, or not quite sure what individual logos or labels mean in practice. So the example of the organic sector that I gave earlier, despite sort of recent trends in some countries, we've generally seen a sort of increase in the organic market in a global context. And that was really the development of the organic sector was really consumer driven, at least in the early stages, and this then led to the adoption of the organic regulations that have been developed and advanced in recent years. And a lot of that was driven by sort of consumer concerns around aspects like pesticide residues and health concerns, as well as food scares and concerns about sort of industrial farming. So, that's related to labelling schemes, at least in terms of how organic products are sold these days. A lot of the origin story, so to speak, of that development was somewhat separated from the labelling aspects. And I think there are important lessons to learn from that that sort of go far beyond this labelling aspect and relate more to aspects of how behaviour change is happening more widely around values and understanding and ideas around what constitutes good quality production systems with regards to things like the environment and animal welfare. And it would be nice if we could sort of try to tap into some of those narratives and think about how we could sort of exploit those from a policy perspective, but also more broadly in terms of the thinking about the role of popular culture and the role of the media, for example, in how we convey messages to consumers. So I'm thinking in particular about things like advertising schemes and the role of important public figures. In the UK where I live, we've had a number of sort of celebrities or popular individuals speaking out about aspects around school meals, for example, and things like that. I think are often underestimated in terms of their impact on consumers and on society, and then eventually the regulation catches up, so to speak, with some of those drivers. And I think often we tend to focus on the labels as a sort of quick win, as it were, but I think it's really important we think about those sort of broader drivers in the food system around the role of popular culture, individuals in society, and messaging, particularly with advertising, and the role of retailers in that, obviously, as well, in terms of how we're delivering those messages to consumers, and not just sort of putting everything on the consumer and sort of bombarding them with information on a packet, so to speak. So.
Okay. Thanks for that. Dorottya, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think it's also important to emphasize the role of public procurement as well. That we saw some good examples on, especially just linking to the organic production in Denmark, where now actually the price point, the difference between organic and non-organic produce is quite low, so the consumer can make their decision. Is not anymore an affordability issue. So public procurement is really important, as well as the availability. So once there is sort of a general consensus on a label that is credible and which are checked by a third party, making sure that it's also available for the consumer. But I agree. Generally speaking, there are loads of labels out there, so I don't necessarily think that this is the main way to go. We don't have to put too much. We don't need to give too big of a role to the consumers for them to make the free food choice, because it should also be the responsibility of other actors along the value chain, not only farmers, but also retailers, processors, and other actors in this value chain.
Yeah, that's excellent insight, Dorottya, and it leads towards my concluding rounds of remarks with you guys. Building on what Dorottya just said, do you guys think individually, and try to end on a positive, constructive note, is there a willingness overall to invest in communicating and implementing more sustainability measures in the European livestock value chain? Are we seeing a positive trend in that direction, or do you think that we're treading water? Start with you, Selene, and then Dorottya, and then Laurence. In this final round, so make it good.
I will try to be positive. So I don't have a clear answer of this question, but what I think is that I hope that the future direction is this one, so that we can invest in general, not only on the communication of the sustainability, but in general to reach a pathways towards this transformative change, and so to this to reach more sustainability pathways for the future. And yeah, so I want also to add that yes, it's not only the label, the tool for the consumer. And what I think is that in Europe, but yeah, in general, I have a lot of examples in Italy. We have a lot of good example of different production methods. So we need also to, as a society, to try to, for example, to go to this, I don't know, it's important, for example, to improve the experience-based tourism, and also to try the experience to go there to see how they work. And I think this is very important to know a lot of different situations that we have all around Europe that are positive experience. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dorottya? Positive?
I would
Needing?
say that at least when it comes to the narrative, there has been some very promising developments, at least at the European level. There's still much confusion about pinning down certain methodologies and assessments on which we can measure the impact of the livestock sector. But I think there's a clear trend towards having a more integrated and evidence-based and also results-driven support system that not only the Common Agricultural Policy could provide, but also sort of all the policy mix and the governance structure that influences this sector.
Okay. Laurence, final notes from you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think I do feel positive in terms of the engagement that we've seen from the private sector and stakeholders in the food system. For example, with the Global Farm Metric Initiative I mentioned earlier, there's been a huge level of interest from companies in getting involved in the development of that framework and its application on farm. And I see that as a really encouraging sign, and that they're really engaged in that dialogue and supporting the development of that initiative. And I think more broadly, there is a concern, with 2024 being warmest year on record. There's a growing awareness and understanding, I would say, in society more generally about the need to tackle the food system, and that we need to sort of take strong action to sort of develop improved models of production and within value chains more generally as well. So I think there is a strong willingness to engage there, and I do feel positive about the future in that regard, in the sense that the dialogues we're having with retailers and with the NGO community and other sort of actors are very positive and encouraging, and there seems to be growing awareness and interest in promoting consumer understanding. I think with some of the political events and dynamics we've seen in Europe and globally as well, there's an increasing need to sort of try and think about how we convey messages in terms of the benefits of particular practices that can reduce inputs, for example, through, for example, increasing the use of legumes in grassland to reduce dependence on fertilizer, and the benefits of those practices. I think we could get better at communicating in terms of the economic gain that can be achieved. And that's really increasingly important as we're sort of moving into this future whereby inputs are going to be increasingly constrained. But overall, I do feel positive about the direction of travel in terms of the engagement we're seeing within pathways and related initiatives like the GFM.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you guys for these insights today. I hope it was useful to our attendees and audience that joined us. Thank you for coming on today. Laurence, Selene, Dorottya, big thanks as well. And next round will be in early September on food apps. So don't miss out on that. And then going into the fall, we'll be talking about the Dublin Declaration and other food systems dynamics in Europe. So thank you for your time today, and see you very soon.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.